It's December 22nd, 2014. 2 years ago, my best friend, my mother, my grandmother, from 3 days old of raising me, made her transition. So I decided each year of her passing, as well as her birth, she would be honored. And tonight, I want to share my gift of life with you was my mother and some of the teachings. And many of you that are out there listening tonight, your mother is with you, give her a hug. If she's not, pick up the phone and call her. Say, I love you. I'll go over. I remember all the hugs my mother gave me. And my mother placed me on this mission that I am on now. When she ordained me to be the bearer of the light of the family and the chief of our love family clan. So on the behalf of myself, Ruby Langley, Solomon Langley, and the Savannah River Band of Yuchi Indians, I speak to you tonight. My mother was a profound woman. Very few words, and when she said it, it was very meaningful. My mother was also a tailor. I was blessed growing up. We were poor, but because my mother was a tailor, we had tailor-made clothes. These things, I am grateful because I wore my mother's design to school. Many kids wasn't that fortunate, but I was fortunate to have a mother by creativity. And even today, it's in me. I can stitch and sew like she did. My mother was a town seamstress for 68 years. And for 68 years, that's all she would do. And even when she took sick and came down to Florida and relocated, and she had a stroke, and she'd be sitting in a chair sometime, and she'd be moving her hands like she's still constantly sewing. It was in her blood. It was in her nature. A lot of Native women sew, but I learned from growing up in a tailoring household how to create. And these things are very significant and priceless. My mother gave us the best. Many times, I didn't want the best because I didn't want to go to school and didn't want the other kids to feel bad because I had on a newer pair of sneakers. And they didn't. And oftentimes, I would scuff them up so they would laugh. Because I was the only one with new shoes on and I was out of place. Not realizing at the time that was my mother's best. And she made sure that we had what she didn't have. So she instilled that in her children. There was no sin in my household. There was right and wrong. And my mother taught me how to own up to responsibilities. Baby, whatever you made wrong, make it right. Whatever you did good, make it better. That was my mother's motto. And I take it today. And from the time I was a child up until the age of 19 when I went off to college, I don't account 3 times I missed a Sunday going to church with my mother. And my mother was the mother of the church because her mother was the mother of the church and her mother was the mother of the church, and so forth and so on. The Yuchi Indians helped establish Asbury AME Church in Savannah, Georgia, what used to be the Colored Methodist Church. There's a lot of deep Native principles in AME churches. It's not been acknowledged. They don't want to talk about it, but we talk about it. These things are very important. My mother taught me how to have patience. In our household, there was no hurry, was no worry. Those things are negative, and don't bring them here. Take your time. If you take your time and you plan accordingly, you have to rush to go nowhere. You can always arrive on time, in due time. And that was her motto. And when Mama gave me this task, she didn't tell me it was going to be difficult. She didn't tell me it was going to be easy. She said, here. Because she prepared me to deal with either way it goes. My mama would cook sometime, well, all the time. And sometimes men would smell my mother's cooking because we lived on the corner. And they'd come by and get a piece of chicken or a piece of cornbread. Uplift their spirit, made them feel good. Often there's a man down the street named Mr. John. And Mama will go sit down with him sometime and just talk to him. And just by in the presence of my mom's spirit, Mr. John would feel better. A plate of my mother's greens would make people feel better. See, most people don't understand with life, you got to have love. And my mother had a lot of it. And she placed it in everything she did, even her cooking. When my mom would barbecue sometime, I can honestly tell you, even the charcoal tastes good. These are the things that my mother had the characteristics of. I never saw my parents argue or fight. Things was always reasoning out. And as a result of that, I am this way today. And I look for those characteristics in people that I saw in my mother and my father. Because they were a team. And they understood that it was a third party in their relationship. And that third party was the bond that held that relationship together. What was those bonds? Trust. Joy. Peace. Understanding. Family. There's no you without me, and there's no me without you. These are the things that I learned growing up. My mother didn't believe in taking her kids to the hospital, or even my father, unless it was absolutely necessary. My mother When we would go to church on Sundays, head over to Georgia, because our church is in Georgia. We lived in South Carolina, which is no more than about 20 miles apart. My father is Yuchi from the South Carolina side, and Mom is Yuchi from the Georgia side, because all of that at one time was Yuchi Indian territory. And during the time they were born, it was still Yuchi Indian territory. Even though they were making up the militia districts, our people were still there, and they're still here today. So I'm honored to have been the chosen one to carry this family legacy. And I carry it by means of doing what she told me. When you teach this history, baby, you give it to them straight. Don't sugarcoat it. Don't cut corners. Lay it exactly like it is. There's never been any fear on this journey. There have been some hardships dealing with people, and you get that. But my mother told me how to tighten my skin and put faith where it needs to be. Many a times my mama didn't believe putting all the faith in God, because you had to do something yourself. And faith in herself and faith in God. And there's a God that's in you. All of these things I got growing up, and I take with me today. But we would go and stop side the road. There's this Georgia red clay. And you're talking about having a birth of energy. My mom would have a shovel, a hoe, and at the time we had a station wagon, and we would stop and had to get out and dig clay. Had to dig down maybe no more than a couple of feet, and that clay would be red just like a Hershey bar, and we would eat that red clay. And gave us all type of energies, a boost. Most people don't know how good red clay is for you. Mom said, boy, eat this dirt. I didn't question my mother on things, because I have enough common sense to know my mother loved me. And when your parents love you, they're not going to do or tell you anything to hurt you. So you got to go on your instincts and obey. There comes a time when obeying becomes an instinct. It became mine. Sit today. And I thought about my mother, and I got my cries out. I had my mother for 46 years. She lived to be 100 and a half. My sidekick, my inspiration, my fuel. These things in life should never be taken for granted. You only get one round with the mother. And my mother raised me, although she didn't physically give birth to me. But she walked out of that hospital with me. See, my grandmother. I'm a victim of a teenage pregnancy. I shouldn't call her a victim. It happened. My mother was very young. She was still a child. My grandmother filled that void, and as I grew up, my brother was more like a sister to me than anything else. But my mother My mother would just touch me sometime, and I'd be made whole. I was a grown man, and she'd come over and tickle me sometime. That's a mother love. See, oftentimes we take the little things for granted. So we have to value people, because that's only one unique individual in this world. We will never have an opportunity to have a relationship with anyone exactly like that person. Whether it's your mother, your father, your brother, or your sister, or even a best friend. This is a life that only comes along in a lifetime that is unique. We have to start learning to respect certain things and people. It's not hard. It's not difficult. I learned these things from my mama. I used to feel bad because my dad would always buy station wagons. Many times people would call us gypsies. But then I realized it was the natives and the gypsies that always had the station wagons. I sit back and reflect on these things now. See, you have to reflect some time in life. Take a dream. Go back and reflect. Go back on childhood. See, when you are raised, you don't forget anything of your childhood. My mother raised me and molded me into the man she wanted me to be. Then I took that and became the man I wanted to be. Never shied away from my faults, because those were my experiences. See, too many times people capitalize on fault, claiming it to be sin. And it's not. These are your life experiences. Whether good or bad, they make up who we are. We have to understand these things. My mother believed and taught in an open mind. Always, son, think about the think about. Look at it from the left and the right. Check out every angle on it. Don't rush it. Pay very close attention to it. Many times we have errors in our day-to-day lives because we're not paying attention. And it doesn't matter if you sat down and you developed a plan a night before, or even if you're looking at the map. But if you're not paying attention to what you are looking at on the map, you can always get diverted somewhere else. So, family, we got to understand this. These things are very important. I would be sick sometime and my mother would sing or she would hum, and the vibrations she was giving off made me feel better. Mom, I don't feel good. Can you sing? Yeah, baby. I'll sing for you. See, these type of teachings many of you have gotten away from. But these teachings are who you are. I stress genealogy because it deals with the history of your ancestors. You can't get around that. That is your Bible. We created a series of teachings called Chief Langley's Genealogy Ministry. in the house of ancestry. This is the gospel. Because the gospel is a way of life. I'm trying to give y'all as much that I can give you while I'm here with you. Some listen, some don't. But I'm glad. Because when you see me, you see what Ruby and Saul Langley created. When you hear me, you hear the teachings of Ruby Langley. See? My mother didn't get out of the 7th grade, but she raised up a scholar. My father didn't get out of the 3rd grade, but he raised up a scholar. Teachings I have in me didn't come from DeBry. That's my engineering teaching. When I give many of you that associate with me, online or not, you got the grassroots me. That came from my ancestors. See? Many a times people get caught up in the names of schools and universities. That is irrelevant at one point in time. Because many a times there are one that are raised up among you. This is what my family gave me. Their teachings can't be compared to no university. So I took it back to the ancient ways of what it was thousands of years ago. The Savannah River Chiefdom. That is our learning institute. Behavioralism, socialism, economics. Medicine man didn't go to no university. We watched the animals. Hey, my dad used to tell me when Inky used to get sick, Inky would go out in the backyard with my grandma, Ethel. Used to pour her urine and that grass was so green. Inky would go back and eat some of that grass and get well. And my dad said, when you get sick enough, I'm going to give you some of that grass too. See? My family became Christians, but they did not become Christianized, and they held on to their life's teachings. And they passed them on to me. And many of you have been given the same task. So don't worry sometimes if sister or brother laugh, or friends laugh. And you're crazy? Okay. Let's see how long who's going to be crazy. The realm of consciousness in this world is infinite. You can't measure it. It constantly gets higher and higher and higher. These things are very important. I remember the few times I was able to go fishing with my mom and my dad. Many of you couples out there need to take the kids sometime and go fishing. Or the two of you go fishing together. Fishing is a thinking man and woman's game. It gives you some me time, reflecting on that water which is healing. See? You got to understand what's in this earth that gives off vibrations, that resonates with you. You're not conscious because you don't recognize these things. Or you ignore these things. These things in life are very priceless and important. Very. My father never took more from the fish branch than he needed. Boy, put that fish back. We don't need that. That's enough. We're not going to eat all those. We didn't take all our fish and just clean them and put them in the refrigerator. We ate them that day. See, this world is in abundance, but you got to be respected of what you take from it. Pile all that food up on your plate and can't eat it. It is wasted. Many of us waste time. Time doesn't measure us. We measure time. Time doesn't value us. We value time. Dang. We have to go back and reflect. And tonight, I share with what my mother gave to me. Many times we'd ride back from Florida into Georgia, and when my mother used to play, and she had a stroke one time, and we went out where the old house was, and at that time, we did two type of burials. Some of the family was buried under the house, and other families were buried behind the house. So my grandfather Titus had a farm, and he farmed out there. But I can only imagine he was the gatekeeper as well. Now, I took my mother out there, and we got out of the car, and she had a walker, and she cooked the feet. She didn't want any shoes on. My mother got out of the car, braced up on her walker, and in about 10 minutes, she threw that walker aside. Now, because of her stroke, the doctor said, well, one side is going to be parallel. My mother didn't have no paralleling nothing. See, when you get back to the home soil and you know what that earth is, and that earth gravitates to you, that is healing. Because you're walking on your ancestors. We take too many things for granted. You shouldn't take a breath for granted, because the breath you just took, you can't get it back. You'll get another one. Life. These things are important. If I had to live my life over again, I wouldn't change my parents. I'd die and come back again. I had the best that was given to me. And there's nothing out there that can replace what they gave me by this work. And see, ain't nothing more in the world hurting is to have a family legacy and to have someone come in and try to take it from you. They don't realize how deadly in life that can be. You honor your mother and your father. I reverend mine. Now I understand why people build shrines, why they build monuments, why they build parks after their family. I understand it now. You pay homage to them. as I will pay homage to mine. It becomes something you don't question. You make it happen. These things in life are important. Don't let no one ever tell you otherwise. So as I try to make it through this lecture tonight, because it's emotional, because I miss my mama. But she left me the tools to deal with life. And she left me enough memories and good teachings to take with me, so I know she lives within me. These things are important. We have to reflect. And I want all of you tonight that are listening, reflect. If there's any animosity or any disagreement or any ill thought you have for your parents, get rid of it, cease it, throw it in the oceans of life and let it go downstream or follow the current. And I say the same thing to the parents. Let it go. Because you only get one go around in life. So every day, every moment is precious. Don't take it for granted. Every day, every moment is precious. And I want you to start looking at things as precious in life. Because many a time we don't. I wish I could hug my mother now. I remember my mom when her Alzheimer's was getting real bad. And she wanted to cook. Now let me explain something to y'all. Many you overlook this. Many times your parents or your loved ones will go when they lose their purpose. My mother cooking for me or making an attempt to cook for me was her expression of her love in her state of mind. She felt better. Sometimes we got to let them go. Does it really matter? Let them cook. Let them rake the yard. Let them dust something off. That's a fulfillment healing within them. You got to recognize these things. These things in life are important. Embrace your parents. You only got one go round. I thought my mama was going to be here forever. I thought I would check out first. See? But it was done the way it was supposed to be done. The son got to bury his mother. And my mama had a long, long life. And she continued to live in the spirit of her little boy, me. See? I carry my mom's driver's license in my wallet. You know why? Because Mama's traveling with me. I have that assurance metaphysically. Mama is still with me. I got Mama in my hip pocket. It's going to be all right. See? That mother's love, that blanket, that shield is still around me. See, these things are important and they're priceless. So whenever I think in my mind, sometimes I get lonely, I just look in my wallet. Oh, yeah, Mama's here with me. These things, priceless. Got to understand these things. Got to understand life. My mother left me the teachings, the recipes that we have. And what did your mama tell you for this and this and this and that? I recall things now Mama told me as a child. I tell people when they ask me. See? We are so caught up on the medical world, and I'm not going to get into the subject, but I'm going to tell you what is out there to heal you is in nature. Study it. Study your surroundings. My mom would tell me sometimes, go outside and just look around in the yard and tell me what you see. See anything? See anything you didn't see before? Go look at the flowers. Study those ants over there. What are those ants doing? See that bullfrog? What is he saying? You think he can talk to the frog? Everything in nature communicates. We've been cut off from it. We have to get back. And when you don't get back, something will take your mind back. Life is not complex. It is not difficult. We place these things on us to make life difficult. My mama would say, stress not about nothing. Don't you worry about problems in this world that money can solve. You can't solve it. It's going to take money. You find the means to get the money, but you find a righteous means. These things are important. You got to understand these things. So tonight, while I was sitting down tonight on the computer, cool breezes came around me. Mama. No air conditioning on, no fan. Mama. And it felt so strong, I hope Mama brought company with her. See, you're never without your ancestors. We think we are. And because my mother's still so much into me to be right in certain things, and because she's in the spirit now, I won't do certain things. Because I'm ashamed my mama might see me. I can't do that. That's what raising do to you. Because even in death, you pay homage to the upbringing you got. We have to understand these things. Not forget these things. Because life is precious. You only get one mama, you only get one father. And if they didn't raise you and somebody else took up the time to raise you, that is your mother and your father. See? I remember Mama saying, people used to talk all the time about Cherokee Princess, and Mama would roll her eyes. Mama, what does that mean? Do y'all know what a Cherokee Princess is? Let me tell you. That's a concubine that sleep with the soldiers for blankets on the Trail of Tears. So Cherokee Princess is a little hoe. Now take it with a grain of salt. You'd be all right. My mother used to sing Amazing Grace sometimes. Saved a wretch. Skip that part. I ain't no hope. These things are priceless, precious. I'm telling you these things tonight to give you understanding, because many of you out here running around talking about grandmama was a Cherokee princess. You better think about it. I just gave you the definition. Suck it up. These things in life are important. Understanding. I try to relay understandings in my teachings. I try to break things down to the least common denominator, because I want my friends and family and bonded family to understand. One of the most genealogies for people to trace and understand is so-called African Americans, because they do not understand the fundamental basis of history and where these things apply and to who they apply to. I'm sorry if you hear somebody lived yesterday. See? Tell people all the time, you got to pay homage to all your ancestors. Because 2 years ago, if you were black, you may have been a white man. 200 years ago, if you white, you may have been a black man. You got to understand these things. These people brought you here. No matter what the conditions were, you were conceived. History. You got to come up out of the history books. My mama always called it nonsense. They didn't put that in there, did they? No, ma'am. They didn't put that either. No, ma'am. None of that. No, ma'am. Come here. This is what you do. See, I have a wealth of history that deals with me. I'm not concerned about Beethoven. I'm not concerned about Alexander the Great. I'm concerned about Langley and the Ute Indians of the Savannah River. I'm concerned about the history of Ruby and Saul Langley, Titus McClary and Rosa Roberts, John Langley and Ethel Dunbar, Henry Langley and Louisa Scheck, Josias and Marty, Mommy. Those are the ones I am concerned about. My Davis, you Peachy. Safa Reed, Sarah Reed. Those are the people I am concerned about. I can go on and on. That's your history. It applies to you. That's where the benefit comes from. Anything else is irrelevant. Totally. A distraction to get you away from yourself. My mama will always ask me, "Well, you know who you are? Baby, do you know what's in you?" No, ma'am. You want to find out. Structuring, building, redeeming. Pleasing the ancestors. So whatever next dimension they're in, they're pleased now. Got to make it right. Many are not called for this journey. But if you have an itch for it, and you're the only one in your family doing it, apparently you are the chosen one. These things are very, very important. So tonight, as I honor my mother, I gave this lecture as a Christmas present to other mothers that are out there. I hope I've said a little word of inspiration to inspire, to uplift, because this is what my mother did. Boy, go over there and talk to that man and say something to lift his spirit up and come back and give me a hug. See, when we say certain words to certain people, they are uplifting the power of the spoken word. These things are very important. We should never forget these things. They're healing life. I'm sad today, but I'm joyful today. Because my mother living was not in vain. She left her baby a purpose. And many of you out there have purposes. These things are important. So before I leave you, I want to thank y'all tonight for listening. As usual, I want to thank you for sharing this moment with me of honoring my mother. These things are precious. And take with you to honor your mother and father. If they're not with you, honor them in spirit. It goes a long way. Now I'm going to open the call lines. Anybody have any questions about anything? If not, we'll say good night. And once again, I thank y'all. 414? 414-349, you have anything? Hello? If not, I'm going to say in my native language, he, so, hey, which means best wishes, good evening, and good night, everyone. Thank you, and I love you. Bye-bye.